All right, folks, we want to tell you that we are excited for today. Look, I have to tell you this. We have a lot of material to go over. I want to say this before we start on anything. We are going to talk about a new war that is emerging right now in Israel. And unfortunately, like the war against Hamas, it has global implications. As a matter of fact, let me take it a step further. It actually has eternal implications. So we're going to talk about that. I'm very excited to have David with me. We're going to talk in just a minute. Before we do, there are a couple of things that I want to do very quickly. I want to take a moment to first acknowledge those of you who are supporting us by giving us super chats and super stickers. Also, those of you that are doing the equivalent on Rumble. You guys are amazing. We love you. You are a kind and loyal audience, and we're just absolutely grateful for the love that you continue to show us, and we thank you so much for it. We know that the Rumble audience is growing. We're grateful for that. But let me tell you why it is such a blessing when you're doing this for us. You are doing this for us because there is no theme that gets us demonetized faster than being pro-Israeli. And I think that is an honorable place to be. And you guys, when you support us this way, you are enabling us to continue on and to be able to take care of these things, to fight the good fight. So thank you for that. I do want to take a moment to just acknowledge a few of the super chats right now as they have come in, and just simply say thank you. So let's do that very, very quickly. I think we only have one to bring up right now, and that is Brad. Thank you so much, Brad. You say this. You say, I remember when Ukraine was attacked, and the mention of Putin attacked Poland. Or the mention if Putin attacked Poland, Latvia or other NATO nations, Article 5 would be invoked. With the U.S. attacked over 50 times in a month, how come no mention of Article 5? I'll tell you why. Because NATO is a pile of garbage, and they are liars, and they are a group of people who were designed to protect nations like Israel, who was, in essence, an honorary, supposedly an honorary member, who was supposed to be protected by default without the contingency of Article 5, yet they are walking and standing against Israel because they are listening to the father of lies, who's the devil, who continues to inspire the other body that works closely with NATO, and that's the United Nations. Which, by the way, let me just tell you, Antonio Guterres, if you can hear me, which you never will hear me, you're a devil and you need to leave because you're destroying your family, your life, and the life of so many other people. But I'm just going to leave that to be because I'm mad right now at him. That's a whole other issue.
Well, we're not surprised. I mean, this is the same organization that called us racist.
Listen, they're evil people. To say that the attacks made by Hamas was not made in a vacuum because of 56 years of suffocating oppression. What a liar. But we're not even going to waste our energy on that because his lies are so obvious it's not even funny. We are going to talk about some other things. We're going to talk about another war that's being fought. It's a very serious war. It's one that's getting big and ugly, and we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the North.
Let's do that.
That's a big conversation that we need to have, and maybe we start with that conversation because that leaves a lot for to be said. There's a lot going on there. So sorry, David. I just got handed a coffee right in front of your face. It's not very nice.
I mean, wait a minute. I'm a soldier.
So I need you to kiss your microphone. Not really kiss it, but you need to get close to it, right?
Where you got you?
Pretend. Listen, this is not. People, plug your ears when I say this, okay?
No.
Pretend your microphone is Christy.
Oh.
You want to stay close to your beautiful right? See, there it is. See, there, look at him. I got him close to his mic now. See that?
You know Christy is laughing right now.
Yeah, you know she is.
I'm glad we can laugh about this. Let's talk about the North.
I am bothered by what I know is going to emerge because of what's happening in the North.
Do you know the Bible says that the evil is going to come from the North?
Oh, yeah. We know that. Come on, this is standard Ezekiel 37.
And you know that I spent...
Or Ezekiel 38.
You know that I spent 3.5 years inside Lebanon.
I know.
So,
folks, I want you to understand something, by the way. The best conversation I ever had with any Jew on the subject of our IDF soldiers dying in the tunnels for the sake of Arabs related to a conversation we had about the North.
Yep.
Right? Remember? Was it 5 years ago, 6 years ago when our babies were dying because of that?
Well, I'm going to say this. My hard disk is so defragmentized that I don't remember anything, but I've got you for that. Okay, so...
Fair enough. I'll buy that. That's
you see, one of the nice things about not having good memory is that you cannot lie. I don't know if you know that.
It's true. Yeah, well, you'll lie, but then if you actually try to, fix it, then you're busted.
The best way to do it is just not to lie, and basically you don't get into trouble. But yes, and maybe this is something we need to talk about. Do you know that the fact that there are Israeli forces in Gaza right now, and we've lost about 45 soldiers over the last week, a week and a half of what's going on, is mainly to save Palestinian lives?
100%.
And that's something that most people don't really understand. And let's see if we can kind of pull that off and see a little bit of
Can I say this too? I think it's important to bring this up before we have this conversation. There is a growing contingent of Jews right now in Israel that are making a substantial controversy over this issue. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you saw this. I'll get you the video. There's a video of a mother who doesn't claim. She supports a group of children who are in the IDF right now, who basically made a very strong and impassioned appeal, crying it was powerful, right? To basically pull all of the soldiers out of Gaza. Follow me when I say this. Pull all the soldiers out of Gaza and bomb the living heck out of it. Then put them back in Gaza when it's a little bit more safe. They want bunker busters. They want all of that. And there's a lot of Jews and Israelis that support this, right? But they all understand that can never happen.
We don't do that.
Right.
We don't do that.
We don't.
And here's the problem. And I've heard people say, why don't you just, turn Gaza into glass, or why don't you just do this? And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and maybe this is why I can bring this kind of personal connection, is that when you opinionate,
yeah, it's got to be closer.
when you opinionate something like this, somebody has to actually execute that policy. Somebody has to be there to pull the trigger. Mm-hmm. Somebody has to be there to do what needs to be done. And you have to think that if you have an opinion that Israel should turn Gaza into glass, okay, think about yourself pulling the trigger that does that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think what I'm seeing in the States, and one of the problems that I'm having while I'm here, is these, Tuesday morning quarterbacks.
Well, yeah.
Who have never been on the field, who have never had to do, who have literally no skin in the game, having very deeply passionate opinions about it should do this and you should do that. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. I mean, any football player knows that the football game is played on the field through the visor of a football helmet and not from a camera from, 20 feet above. And here's I think one of the things that we're missing here is for us, this is up close and personal. This is on the ground. We live through the visor of that football helmet. We don't live from the camera on the top, from the Goodyear camera.
Yep.
And that's something that I think puts all of this into a little bit of perspective.
Okay, so let's for a second go back and revisit this, because the gist of this is if these people have destroyed Jewish lives and would do it all over again. Listen, I wish people could understand Arabic like I do, because if you listen to one of the leaders of Hamas, by the way, who's being interviewed from Qatar, all places.
In Qatar.
Right, yeah. Who basically says we would do it on the 10th and the 15th and the 20th. And we would do it every day if we could until we eliminate the Jews.
Yep. He says it.
He says exact words.
I mean, going to YouTube. I think it was on. I don't think it was on Al Jazeera. It was on a Lebanese.
It was a Lebanese.
And he says,
right.
Okay, we would do
Actually,
it.
no, it was Al Jazeera.
Maybe.
No, it was. I'll tell you why it was Al Jazeera. Because he was live in studio, and Al Jazeera's main studios are in Qatar. They're out of Qatar.
So here's the thing. He was speaking Arabic to an Arab reporter. We'll see if we can find this, okay? But when he gets to the point where he says, we will do this again, he says in English, like he means for this to be passed on to the English speaking. He says, let me make myself clear. We are going to do this again. And I think that why is it that we hear this and understand what's going on? And why is it that the other side doesn't hear? And why is it that hundreds of thousands of people walking through the streets of Washington, D.C. do not hear what he is saying and do not understand that there's no one on the other side that wants to reach any kind of agreement? They say they don't. They say they won't. And why don't we believe them?
Listen, we don't believe them because we are arrogant as Americans to assume that they have our same value system. I watched a video that a very dear friend of mine posted, a man that I respect immensely. He's a good guy. I'm not even going to name him, but he's a sweet man, right? Yeah, Dale, I know, but he has to kiss the mic. I've got it boosted as much as possible. The people online are saying they can't hear you. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. He's a man that I respect immensely. And when I say immensely, I mean immensely. He put out a video of Elon Musk. And maybe I'll find the video and play it. But it's Elon Musk basically saying that all you're going to do is make Hamas mad if you start taking Hamas lives. But if you start returning more acts of kindness than you do acts of aggression, then you'll stop the radicalism that is emerging from Hamas. And maybe if you do 10 acts of kindness versus 1 act of unkindness, then maybe it'll all work. Well, listen, I love the intelligence that Elon Musk has, but that may be one of the most incredibly stupid things I've ever heard come out of his mouth.
Well,
ignorant.
I've got an easy one for that. We even bought into that at a certain extent.
That's part of the problem.
We bought into the fact that they wanted to work in our factories and in our economy. We bought into the fact that they wanted us to treat their sick and problematic people in our hospitals. We bought into the fact that they wanted us to help them. And listen to this. Israel supplies their water and supplies their electricity because we wanted them to live well. We have no obligation to supply water and electricity to these people.
But how much longer do you supply water and electricity when they take the water pipes that you transmit the water through to make missiles that are being launched all over the South, right? And on top of that, you take the electricity they provide for you and use it to store up in their bunkers to power their tunnel system.
I can't help but repeat myself again. And you heard me on Sunday say...
It's a softball. It's a softball.
You heard me on Sunday say that truth is being decided in the world today by what makes me feel good. And it doesn't make somebody feel good to think that somebody else can be a terrorist with death, mayhem, rape, and killing of children on their mind. I don't feel good about that. I mean, even the reporters who went to see the movie, okay, they came out and says, we can't repeat that. What we saw, what we experienced just now, we can't repeat. It'll make our viewers and it'll make our hearers feel very ungood, very not nice. I mean, the fact that they were willing to do that, okay, has nothing to do with the fact that it makes it hard for me as a person to think about people doing that. It's real. It's true. But it doesn't make me feel good to talk about it. So let's not talk about that. On the other hand, it does make me feel good to talk about what's happening to people in Gaza. it does make me feel good to say I'm standing up for these poor, innocent people. That makes me feel good. It doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if it's not the Israelis killing them. They're being killed by their own government for used as pawns. It makes me feel good to blame somebody for what's happening and call for a ceasefire. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to pay anything. I don't have to connect to anything. My people, my family is not under death threat by these people who are trying to kill them. It makes me feel good to say, stop the fire, because that is a good feeling, and it has nothing to do with reality or truth.
Yeah, but I look, David, this is the part that just drives me crazy. We can't get any more visual than the picture that we saw yesterday that the IDF released. Did you see the video of the IDF PR guy that walked in? I forgot his name. He walked in with his full gear into one of the main hospitals in Gaza that they just cleared out. Okay, in this hospital, as you start going through the rooms that people are supposed to be treated in, they look like Bethlehem. They look completely destroyed, torn apart, messed up. Nothing is in order. You might as well burn trash in the middle of that room, okay? Yet, when you go downstairs, 20 meters down, in the tunnel, underneath, that is the place where all of the Hamas leaders are meeting or whatever, you might as well be in a nice fancy hotel.
One of the things that shook us up in Israel was he was underneath the hospital, and he found a room with AK-47s and explosives and everything, but then something else. They found a motorcycle. And we know that a lot of the perpetrators of the attack actually came across the border on motorcycles.
The one with the bullet hole.
The one with the bullet hole. Okay, but here's what shook me up. And again, this is me, okay? I mean, this is personal. Next to the motorcycle with a bullet hole that we realize is the type, and if that's got a bullet hole, it was part of that attack, is a packet of Pampers.
Yep.
Of diapers.
Yep.
Meaning somebody with a motorcycle was in that room with a baby that is still in diapers. I mean, just to think that motorcycle and somebody on it, who was fired at, by the way, because it's got a bullet hole in it, okay, brought a child with him, and he was in that room with a diapered Jewish baby. If that doesn't yell crazy underneath, and all of this is where? Not in a bunker, not in a fortress, not in a castle.
What we say in Arabic, tahta mustashfa, right below a hospital.
Right under the hospital. And if that is not clear enough, what else needs to be clear? Which leads us to part of the other argument that we've been talking about. The fact that it's not clear. The fact that 10,000 Palestinians were killed in Gaza, and I'm going to say, I can argue about that, but we're yelling about that. But 600,000 Palestinians were killed in Syria. Nobody's yelling about that. Yells deception. Yells David, connection.
And the 600,000 number is not even. It's a nothing number. They think it's way worse than that.
But why aren't Syrian flags being waved in the streets of Europe?
Because of Obama's red line. I mean, let's think about this. Honestly, let's think about it. You have the former president of the United States, who's pretty much kind of running the same mind as the current president of the United States, who, when the time all of this killing was going on in Syria, basically said, I'm drawing a red line, and if it gets crossed, then, we're going to do something. And the red line got not only crossed, but it got zigzagged again and again and again and again. And you know what? Nobody said a dang thing. And then you have Gaddafi getting up near the beginning of Obama's tenure, who basically refers to Obama as Ibn al-Arab. He's the son of the Arabs. He's one of our children. Isn't that funny that somebody from his administration is the one that actually had something to do with him going bye-bye, if you know what I mean? But James, it's crazy.
I'm going to do something that we've been doing before, and I think it was this morning. Somebody came up to me and showed me her phone and said, listen, this is somebody that I know who grew up in a Christian environment, and she posted Free Palestine on her feed. Now, here's the thing.
Stupid.
No, but she knows. She grew up. She's learned. She studied the Bible. But what she is saying, and to a certain extent, this is something that we need to deal with, okay? She is saying, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't get it. But I know that people are dying, and it makes me feel good to say that's not right.
Okay, so you want to know why I say stupid? Because I'm going to say this again and again.
Okay.
Forgive me. Stupid is not the right word. I'm going to correct myself right now online, and I'm going to say that I used the wrong word. Okay, demonic. That's the better term. Let me tell you why. Okay, let's just examine the reasoning of this. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into the description of the marked atrocities that took place with these babies, with these older women, with these men, women, and children. You know what? To living heck with even talking about that. Let's just throw that away. Let's not even have a conversation about the insane animals don't do this to one another. Let's not even talk about the disgusting behavior of Hamas, which, by the way, moms and dads everywhere in Gaza are cheering their children on for doing this stuff. Let's not even talk about that, okay? Let's just pretend none of that ever happened. If you are foolish enough to say, I don't know, why the heck would you be so incredibly ignorant to pick the side of the aggressor? You're picking the side of the aggressor, and you're saying, free them. Free them to do what?
So why?
Free them to take more lives?
Why?
Brainwashed. They're completely brainwashed. It's demonic. It's the in vogue thing to do. It's the popular thing to do.
Okay.
We're at the point right now in many public schools where they're even beginning to remove the teaching of World War II out. Why are they stopped? Why are they not teaching World War II at all? They're not teaching World War II anymore because they don't want anybody to talk about what happened with Japanese imperialism. They don't want anybody to talk about or to know about the atrocities that took place with Jews. That's the biggest issue. They are now beginning to deny things like the Holocaust.
Again, denial is not the issue. Deception is not the issue. But here's what's going back. Okay, let's talk to these nice people who are listening to us and watching us right now. What can they do to fight this deception?
You have to continue to tell the truth.
Exactly.
You just have to. And look, you might not even feel like you're articulate enough to be able to describe a specific perspective, but you've got to start getting material like the kind we're producing for you out to people and just say, hey, look, this is what's really going on. Before you choose to make an assertion about something, why don't you stop for a moment to actually do the research? Can I tell you something that really interesting that happened the other day?
Okay.
I did a video where I actually quoted something in Arabic. And I'm not joking. I had a guy, not that it matters if you're white, doesn't matter what color you are, what race you are, anything like that. But I had a guy who has no understanding of the Arabic language, has never spoken it a day in his life, doesn't understand the people, the culture, the background, the history, or anything like that, tried to correct me about the way I pronounced a certain word. And you know what the way, look, you can attest to this. Your first language is Hebrew. Your second language is English, okay? When people hear me speak Arabic, they think I'm born and raised in Egypt.
Okay.
So you're telling me now you're going to correct me over an Arabic word. You want to know why? Because all of a sudden, a massive war breaks out in the Middle East and everybody is an expert. That's exactly what happens.
Okay. So I like the people who quote Hebrew to me.
Oh, that's a funny one too.
Again,
oh,
I mean,
you got to love that.
You hear that. Or the funny one is when they make tattoos in Hebrew that say something completely different.
Oh man, those are my favorite ones. We had a guy from our church. We had a guy from our church who was involved in ministry years ago. He's not involved in ministry now. He came to me, he says, look at my tattoo. And I just said, you should have got a tattoo on your arm that says, I'm an idiot. Because you know what this dummy did? I love him. I mean, God bless him, right? But this is typical of his age, his college group, right? He goes to Google, right?
Google Translate.
No, not even Google Translate. No, he wasn't smart enough to go to Google Translate. He goes to Google. He types in the English word, and then he changes it to a Greek font.
Okay, but here's the thing. We're not dealing with these kind of people. We're dealing with the people who are trying to understand what's going on, who feel emotional connection to the war. And one of the things I think we're fighting against is this automatic moral equivalence. Okay? You're fighting, you're fighting. You're killing, you're killing.
It's evil.
And it makes the same thing. But what I'm trying to say is this. The world is not morally equivalent ever. And in other ways, in other places in our life, we're willing to accept a different moral equivalency. Okay? When two kids have a fight in the schoolyard, okay, you can say both kids are to blame. But in most cases, there's one side that instigated this and one side that retaliated. But we're in a world where automatically we say, wait a minute, if you two are rolling in the dust, that means you both are equally to blame. And if you look at the camera on this play yard, you see that one side is definitely instigating this and starting this. Then if you chastise both sides equally, then you have lost any kind of moral equivalency, and you are rewarding the aggressor, okay? And you are victimizing the victim again.
But David, I have to say this. Look, I don't have a problem with the term equality. Equality is, matter of fact, in my opinion, equality is probably one of the best terms to deploy because God functions on that basis, right? It's the premise that all men are created equal. God, we have. There's no reason why anybody should not be put on an even heeled plane. I have a problem with the term equity. I have a problem with the term that says it is my moral obligation to take away from somebody who righteously earned something in order to give to somebody who doesn't care about what they earned. This is the mentality that started with the culture of wokeism that has now carried itself into the willful and open destruction of Jewish life because it translates into that. The whole idea is now we throw out the discussion of moral equivalency when in reality, moral equivalency is a fancy way of saying, I don't like you. And the reason why I don't like you is because I'm told that you are a certain type of oppressor. None of which is true because I haven't taken the time to examine the facts. And so now as a result of all of that, I am going to take away from you, even if that's human life, to bring what I consider to be equity into a circumstance because that is the moral equivalency mechanism that drives the unjust and demonic action. The reality of it is Jews were never on equal footing. They have never been on equal footing. The only time that you could ever argue that Jews were put in a place of advantage is when God said he would bless his people and God declared them to be his people. Yes, there's an advantage there. But let me explain something to you. I don't have to explain this to you. I'm explaining this to the audience. Jews have never been on an equal footing. Never. They have always been at the most disadvantaged places in human history. Why do you think the Jews have more patents? Why do you think the Jews have more Nobel Peace Prize? Do you understand? This is to the audience, not you, that half of the world's population right now would be without food if it wasn't for the introduction to irrigation tactics alone that the Jews have introduced because of the conundrum they had with the Galilee.
But that is part of the reason that it's so feel good to hate us, because we're a minority. We think we're special, and here's the thing: we can prove it.
You're dang special.
But we can prove it.
Look, can I just explain this to you? Even if you threw out what God said about his people, can we just throw that away? Let's pretend that the Jews are not God's ancestrally chosen people, and we basically made an argument on merit alone. Just merit. You're still a special people. Because if it weren't for your contributions, we wouldn't have half the luxuries and blessings that we have in this world.
But here's the problem. If you're special and people are jealous, afraid, reactioning, then this is where you get hurt. And again, I have a deep fundamental believing that part of the Arab Spring, remember that Arab Spring that blew through the Arab world where everybody was yelling democracy, democracy, all the Arab nations wanted democracy. Why did they think that democracy was such a big thing? Because when a young Arab in Cairo or in Damascus or in Amman or in whatever looks at his world, It's really they're in terrible. I mean, all the Arab nations, all the Muslim nations,
Terrible shape.
are on the ground.
Yep.
Okay, then he looks across the border. Then he looks
Below.
across the border and looks at Israel. And look at amazing economy. I mean, one of the growest economy. I mean, look what we've done in 70 years. And again, I'm not objective, but even if you're objective, you got to agree with me. And he looks across and he says, wait a minute, what do they have that we don't have? Now, he's not going to say they have a better religion. He's not going to say they have God. Okay? He's going to say they have democracy. And I don't know if you remember the Arab Spring started off with, oh, we want democracy. I mean, democracy works here, it works here, it works here. If we have democracy, our life is going to be better. The thing is that Muslims are not built for democracy.
They're built for theocracy.
Exactly. They're built for submission. In democracy, you don't submit. You participate.
Yep.
Submission is Islam. Democracy is participation. And because they can't submit, that's why democracy, when Egypt got democracy, they elected, democratically elected, the most undemocratic person in the world, and that is the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is Israel has been a thorn in the Middle Eastern ideal, not in the fact that we were not willing to participate, but we show what God's people can do against all odds. And that is something that the Muslim world has never accepted and never agreed to live with, which is why Gaza, the people in Hamas, the people in the Hamas do not want to take part in Israel's success, do not want to take part in Israel's abilities. They don't want our high-tech capabilities and our education abilities. They want to destroy us. And they will say this clearly again and again and again.
Yeah. Listen, you're 100% right about it. That is the truth. And it continues to be ignored by a lot of people.
So why are they ignoring it, James?
Look, I keep going back to this. It's demonic. It is a satanic attack, which is why it is the duty of Christians to continue to proclaim the truth. The only way you defeat this stuff is that way. It's a spiritual blindness that exists in people that keeps them from being able to understand it. And I will tell you this, there's a lot of people in the church that are doing the same exact thing. Some of the worst dehumanization of Jews in existence right now is happening amongst Christian circles. Perhaps the most significant Christian circle where the dehumanization of Jews is taking place is in replacement theology. If you go to a lot of members of the Reformed Church who will say that Israel doesn't exist anymore, we are spiritual Israel, you just dehumanize the whole population of people. You basically say that they're not a variable that exists in any scenario.
I can't help but say it again. It's the feel-good theology. What makes me feel good? What makes me feel good is I'm the church. I'm the priest. It makes me feel good that all of the things that God said about the Jews now go on me.
Yeah, but the problem with that is I think that that's such a crazy way of looking at things, because the reality of it is, if you want to feel good as a Christian, then the best thing you can do is support the Jews. Can I just tell you this? I don't mind saying this. I really don't. There are two things in my life that I can link abundant blessings to, right? Doing, okay? Two major things in my life that I can look at and I can say, God blessed me abundantly as a direct result of doing this. Now, don't get me wrong. The blessings that I have overall are because God is faithful to me and his love for me has astoundingly just blown my mind. He's good, okay? But here's the thing, and this is very, very important to understand. God's abundant faithfulness to me in specific areas in my life can be linked to two very specific actions. The first action that it can be linked to is the adoption of my children. When I made the decision with my wife to seek adoption and I adopted all three of my children, I have never seen God pour out more of a blessing on me and my family, especially in the financial end of things and in other areas. There was a direct link and God blew our mind, okay? The first and most significant area that I watched a direct link of God's blessing to me on in any area of my life, especially in the younger years, was when I made the decision to support and stand with Israel. Look, you get the blessing of God when you walk in obedience to him. You see God's blessing when you follow his word. You know, there's lots of blessings that I've received as a result of a lot of different things. But the two most significant areas of my life, probably the third most significant, was marrying my wife and the blessing that came from that. Well, it's an unspoken.
Is she listening to us?
So no, she doesn't. You know why? She doesn't listen to. She listens to all my Bible studies, but she doesn't listen to these because we oftentimes talk about themes that aren't appropriate for the kids. So
I hear you. You know, my wife is listening, so yes, I totally agree with you. That's very important. But let me go back and kind of connect one more thing though. We're Christians, and listen, I'm Jewish. I've got all the skin in the game. My families, my people, everything that I am is in Israel with this terrible odor going on. But we're all Christians too, and the deceiver doesn't need us all to go out and fight against him. He's got enough people on his team to fight his battle. He's got enough workers. He's got enough YouTube channels. He's got enough algorithms that are working in his favor. He doesn't need, us only to fight him. All he needs from us is to shut up. Yep. All he needs from us is to stay silent. And in many cases down through the world, you see that the good people didn't fight against the bad. All they did was stayed silent. And here's what I'm trying to say. And again, I'm sorry to say this because I've been in the States for a week and a half now during this event. A lot of good people are silent right now. And that has me as worried as the fact that a lot of people are very noisy. The bad people are being very noisy. The good people are being silent. And I've seen that silence scream at me in different places. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And what I'm trying to say is you will be judged not only for what you do and you don't do, you will be judged for your silence.
Yep.
And when it comes time to ask who stood behind my people, who stood for my people, you can say I turned off the TV. You can say I didn't say anything. But I think somebody's going to look you in the eyes and say, wait a minute, but what did you do? Were you silent? Did you just stay in your couch and just wait? Or did you go with something? And I think one of the battles that we're fighting here is against the silence of the majority.
And listen to me. There will be people that will have stayed silent out of pure ignorance and never got involved. There's lots of people right now that are in the church that don't even know there's a war in Israel happening. There are, listen to me. There are people in the church right now that don't even see Israel as a significant consequence to anything. And I'll tell you what that's a reflection of. That's a reflection of terrible leaders. And so those leaders will be judged. Those pastors will be judged.
I can say this. If somebody has been in church twice in the last month and doesn't understand that Israel is on a battle for its existence and doesn't understand that good and evil is being played out on the ground, that is a failure of a pastor.
But can I explain something to you, David? That's probably 85% of the churches.
I want to be optimistic. I'm
being optimistic.
I want to say that somebody who's got the Word of God open on the pulpit and has these stories down through and has been teaching through this has to see the Word of God being played out on the hills of Judea.
They are the same cowards that would not take a stand when the government told them to shut their churches down. It's the same type of cowardice. Me and you both know people that are, for the sake of not only convenience, but because they do not want to ruffle any feathers or shake any boats, will not talk about this stuff. And that is an overwhelming amount of people.
So can I ask the people who are watching us a favor?
Sure.
Go to your pastor. Go to your leadership. Go to the people that you take your spiritual direction from and say, something is happening in Israel that is deeper than just a war between two people on the other side of the world. Something is happening that is very deep and very profound. What do you as a pastor, what do you do as a leader have to tell us about what's going on? Ask them. I mean, push against it. Ask them what they think about what's going on. Now, a lot of them are going to say, I don't want to get into this because it's controversial. But, well, isn't the Bible kind of controversial when you get into stuff?
Yes.
I mean,
It's all controversial.
So we do expect people to kind of deal with these complicated issues, and I think that's what spiritual leadership is. But again, I'm not a pastor, so I'm not going to kind of pull off on anything of that.
David, everything I do, everything I talk about, it has been controversial. Look, we talked about this. I got pulled aside by some of the most prominent leaders in the Christian culture and told to stop. Don't do this. Don't talk about this. You're a pastor. Your job is to preach the word, and you shouldn't do anything else. And here's my statement to that. What do you think I'm doing, dummy? I'm not trying to be harsh. But if you're preaching the word, then what are you doing? You are teaching people not to compartmentalize what they learn in the Bible, but to integrate it in every part of their life. And if I can't show them how to practically integrate it in every part of their life, I'm not doing my job.
Okay, so but here let's go back to what can these people do? And again, share clips. I mean, I'm making content. Pastor James making contents. Other people are making contents. Please share it. I mean, if the enemy is using the algorithm of X or Twitter or whatever in order to spread its lies, use the algorithm of Twitter and X to spread the truth. I mean, we need to do that.
And I want to say this, and I will give most people credit that are watching. Most people that are watching us right now would not be watching us and commenting and participating if they were not already actively involved in this fight in one way or another.
Which is why I want to say thank you, but here's the next stage, okay? We need to push this out.
There's where it changes a little bit. We have to get everybody who's already participating here to start aggressively pushing this out and telling people, hey, you need to be aware. You know my number one demographic? You might not know this. This is my number one demographic, which, by the way, when I look at all of your analytics, is your number one demographic.
Okay, I'm scared now.
Number one demographic of people that watch us, right? Women 65 and older. Actually, it's dropping a little bit. Women 55 and older. You want to know why?
Okay.
Just by me looking at the comments and studying kind of the what you would call the psychoanalysis of my audience, an overwhelming majority of our audience are older women who have everything to fight for. They have children and they have grandchildren that they're concerned about their futures. They have a whole family that they are responsible for as the matriarchs of their family, their little mini culture, and they are looking for answers to help fight for their futures. So, an overwhelming majority of these people in our audience is that group.
So maybe this is a good place to say, and I'm going to give them a name. Can we call them the Grandma League?
Sure.
Okay.
I call them the Warriors.
There you go.
But
here's
they
the
are.
thing. In every other realm of your life, if you're a grandma and you've got a couple of grandkids and you got a beautiful house and a beautiful husband, in every other area of your life, you're saying, I can't really change anything. Here, on this question, with the tools that you have, that cell phone that you're holding in your hand and that computer screen that you're looking at right now, you have the weapons to fight in this war. Please get on the war.
Look at those numbers. Look at the overwhelming amount of older ages that we're seeing.
So this is something that I think we need to pass on.
14 grandchildren, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Debbie Long, 14 grandchildren.
Yeah. So she's a warrior.
They're all warriors. Who was it? Someone just said this. Let me see if I can find it because I want to point it out because I love Bartjen. He's 41, male, a little bit different, right? I saw another one here that I just thought was just awesome. It's like at a young age, there was a lady who said she's 41. She's a wife and a mother. You know, many of them starting at young ages. But look at this, bro. 7 grandchildren.
Wow.
They're all, look at this, and they're all saying the same thing. I'm all fighting for my kids.
Well,
all
yes.
fighting for my kids.
Yes, I'm new in the grandpa role, by the way. I'm kind of getting used to it. Look at the white hair, and then kind of getting this. But it changes the world when you look at not the generation that you were responsible to raise, but the generation that you're responsible to defend. And there's a difference. We don't raise our grandchildren. We defend them. We pamper them. We spoil them. Okay, so this is a different kind of dynamic. But I'm asking myself, what did I leave behind in the world for Malachi to grow up into? For what do I
true.
what do I leave? And there's a much different and part of what I'm worried for what's going on in the ground in Israel. And maybe we need to talk about what's going on in the north before it actually happens.
Yeah, we need to talk about this because I think it's an important conversation.
But I'm also worried for what's going on here. What is the environment that this grandson, beautiful, beautiful eyes, I mean, it makes me smile. But what is the environment that he's going to grow up into? And what is my role and what is my job to prepare the environment that he's going to grow up to? And I think it's going to be a different environment from the one I grew up into and one we grew up into. And I think it's going to be a much more hostile environment in the future than the one that we're living in today. I think it's time to get prepared for that.
Oh yeah, and this is such an important conversation to be having. Let me bring this map up. I'm gonna cut you loose on this because this is an important conversation to be having. So let's do that really quickly. Let me switch over here and let me bring this map up because it is worth this discussion. Explain to people what they're seeing here. And maybe an eye that might not be familiar with the region.
Okay, so the blue stuff on the left-hand side is the Mediterranean Sea. So we're actually looking at the eastern edge of the Mediterranean Sea, what's called the Near East. The red line that you see running through the middle of the map is the border between us on the southern part of the red line, at the bottom of the red line. And the little lake that you see there is the Sea of Galilee. And on the top of the red line, above the red line, are two countries actually. On the left side is Lebanon, and on the right side is Syria. So you're looking at the northern border of Israel, which actually cuts through from west to east, through the mountains of the Upper Galilee. Then you see it kind of takes a turn and it creates a little finger kind of sticking up into the connection of the border between Syria and Lebanon. We call that the Galilean finger, and that's the green area, which is a valley. So what I'm trying to do is kind of illustrate what the border between Israel on the south of this and Syria and Lebanon on the north of this look like. And one of the things that you're going to see very clearly that from the coast to the Galilee, basically, it's a border that cuts through mountains and hills. And they are mountains, by the way, literally mountains. But you see that the valley, the fertile green valley that sticks up to the north, the Hula Valley, what we call, is actually part of the Syrian African Rift, the Jordan River, which is below. And you can see that the Lebanese part of the border up there overlooks the valley. Now, why is that important? The middle of the border area, we're fighting on our hill and they're fighting on their hill. But in the valley area, which is the fertile area where a lot of Israelis live, they're on top of the hill and we're at the bottom. And that's the site of a lot of massive attacks. I saw a newscast from exactly where the mouse is right now, where you stand in an Israeli village and you look up and in the cliff above you, overlooking everything, overshadowing everything, are Hezbollah positions. And let's go a little bit into what's happening now. Let's go in a little bit into what might be happening, and maybe, James, we can go a little bit into the further out area. What's happening right now is that the whole southern part of the border, is actually controlled by a proxy Iranian Shia militant organization called the Hezbollah that is trained, funded, and kind of connected to the Iranians. Iran is using the Hezbollah as their tool, as their hammer, as their actually arrow in the Middle Eastern area, and their job is to make the life of people in Israel miserable. Basically, they need to be on that on the edge. That is a tool that Iran is making to fight against the West. And that's the geopolitics. But literally lately, we're seeing more and more rocket attacks from the Lebanese side of the border into the Israeli side of the border. Sometimes it's long-range rockets like they've used in Gaza. But we're seeing more and more what we call direct fire from the cliffs on top of the Israeli side, directly pointed at cars, vehicles, houses on the Israeli side. Yesterday, they killed a electric company team who was actually fixing the electricity, and they shot an anti-tank missile at an electricity guy van. I mean, and killed 2 people and injured a few more. And what I'm trying to say is, look at the border, look at what's happening now, because right now there's a growing tension. There's attacks going across, but we're on the edge of a full-out explosion that's going to happen across that border, and that's going to be a completely different game.
I think it should also be said, because it is important to note this, because a lot of people might not be aware of this, but when you look at Hezbollah, which, by the way, in Arabic, when we translate the word Hezbollah, it means the party of Allah. That's an interesting thing. The one thing that we should note, especially understanding the tactical positions that they hold to the north, specifically when I always say the north, I really mean closer to the northeast. Okay, that little finger that David was talking about, that it may be one of the worst positions for any. There's a lot of settlers that don't want to live there. Let's just say that. But here's the thing: if Hezbollah had homemade rockets like Hamas, that would be one thing. Okay? The Iron Dome is very effective, and in many ways, it's just, that's one thing. But Hezbollah does not have homemade rockets. Okay? Hezbollah has very sophisticated, not nearly as sophisticated as Israel, but still very sophisticated technology handed to them immediately down from Iran, that in some cases even has guidance capability.
Yep.
And has homing capability. Okay? So when Hezbollah fires a rocket, it's very, very different, because it's not a rocket. In many cases, it's a missile. And it's more dangerous. And let me just say this. If Hamas has, and I'm giving an arbitrary number just so you understand the scope, the difference. If Hamas has 10,000 rockets, Hezbollah has 1.5 million. I'm not saying that's their actual number, but I'm using those numbers to demonstrate the disparity.
The actual numbers are around 150,000.
Yeah,
rockets.
150,000 rockets compared to what they estimate to be the 8,000, maybe at the most, rockets that Hamas has during any given time. Which most of the time, prior to wartime, the estimate was what, 2,000 maybe?
Well, and they've already fired 8,000 at us during this round.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're already talking about that, and we believe that they have more. So, yeah.
So maybe around there. So, but the reason why I'm giving that number is to demonstrate the disparity that exists between the two. In other words, if Hamas is supposed to be an aggressor, they are the 2-year-old compared to the 45-year-old warrior that is Hezbollah.
And they've been fighting in Syria for a long time. But let's kind of line this up a little bit with what I think people should look at, because here's the thing. We're going to be sitting here a week from now, 2 weeks from now, in the middle of an all-out war between Israel and the Hezbollah.
Yeah.
And when
I hope not, but that's what's going to happen.
Not. I'm praying not. And if there's anything you want to pray for, I mean, pray that we can deal with the Hamas without having to deal with the Hezbollah in the meantime.
By the way, did you hear Nasrallah's second speech?
No.
Ugh.
What did he say?
I'm growing more and more convinced that they are having second thoughts about attacking Israel.
Oh no.
I don't know if they're gonna listen to those instincts, but it would appear to me I'm beginning to feel within me, based on his speech, that there was something that happened that took them by surprise with the actions of Hamas. I don't think that they expected to see what happened. Now, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they didn't expect the attack to take place, or does that mean that they were expecting the attack to take place but didn't realize it would be as significant or successful as it was?
I think they didn't realize the significance and the success.
That's my guess.
Hamas was completely taken by surprise. But I think something else is happening. I think they didn't realize Israel was going to react like that.
Well, that's a given.
And I think that has them shaking a little bit more than they would have, that Israel has pulled out all stops. Because I'm going to be sure that Nasrallah was sitting there and says, Hamas is going to do this. When and if they do. By the way, maybe we can, if we have time, talk about the difference between the border with Hamas and the difference between the border with Lebanon. I don't believe that what the Hamas pulled off in Gaza, that the Hezbollah could have pulled off in Lebanon.
There's no way.
And here's the thing. I think I'm one of the few people that that has literally been stationed
So you know that.
on both borders.
Yeah.
And we can talk about the difference between the both borders and what happened, which connects to what happened in Gaza and what's connecting to what's happening in Hamas. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that if the Hezbollah had wanted to get into this, then they should have done it 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they had wanted to be a part of this, they should have gotten into this before Israel embedded itself in Gaza to take out the Hamas. Because the more forces Israel has to send to the north to deal with Hezbollah, the less that you are sending to the south to deal with Gaza. And if they wanted to help their friends in Gaza, they should have done this a long time ago. The fact that they are not has the people in Gaza cursing the Hezbollah, by the way. I don't know if you know, they're literally throwing shoes at pictures of Nasrallah on the social media down there.
Well, especially after the speech that he gave a few days ago, when he basically said tough luck. And he basically told Hamas, he said, we support you and your day will come, but right now is not that day. I forgot the exact words that he used, but it was something to the effect of, we have to allow you to face this struggle alone.
But let's get out of the helmet of the linebacker, and let's get above the cable camera that floats around on the top. And I want to go into the Goodyear blimp a minute.
Yeah.
Okay? And talk about the fact that all of this is being orchestrated by the Iranians.
Oh, yeah.
And talk about the fact that Iran has accepted the sacrifice of the Hamas in order to achieve their goal. Their goal was to stop the peace process. The goal was to stop the Abrahamic Accords. The goal was, look at the Middle East. This is my neighborhood. I'm the bully. I tell you what to do. And they used the Hamas in order to achieve that from their point of view. But here's the thing. The Hamas has been sacrificed for that goal. Iran is saying, okay, Hamas will not exist at the end of this event. And as opposed to what people thought, I think everybody is realizing that Israel will take out the Hamas no matter what the world does.
But there's a series of complexities that you just brought up that have to be understood by a lot of people. One of the complexities that has to be understood is the mindset of the average Persian versus the mindset of somebody like Khomeini or Raisi. Okay, when we talk about these guys, you have to understand something. Their intent was undoubtedly to put a stop to the peace process. It was undoubtedly one of their intents. The bigger and more significant intent was to follow what the Quran tells them to do, and that is destroy Jewish lives. But there was an intent involved in this to disrupt the peace process. But here's the thing that people don't realize about Iran, that most people will never realize about Iran. They may be running closer and closer to nuclear weapons. They may have missiles that are pretty sophisticated because of some relations that they've had with Russia in recent times and so on and so forth. But what people don't realize about Iran is that they are the worst military tacticians alive. Not only are they the worst military tacticians, they are by virtue of default in their position as a state, cowards. Their whole function is accomplished through the use of proxies. They do not do anything unilaterally as a state to affect any cause, because they are not only are they not well equipped to be able to do it effectively, but they also make the general assumption that they are not going to be able to win unless they bring in the complexities that are created through the use of proxies. This is how they have been so successful south of Saudi Arabia in Yemen. The very moment, and I told this to everybody, and they told me I was crazy. They said I'm out of touch. I don't know the region. They told me to stop making such a big deal out of Joe Biden declaring the Yemeni Houthis as no longer a terrorist organization. I said it was the single greatest act to contribute to what could potentially be the destruction of the Jewish state. They know it, they understand it, they realize it. Why? If I disable the Yemenis, if I declare the Yemenis as no longer being an enemy combatant, then anybody who buys any equipment from the United States to defend themselves can no longer use that equipment to defend themselves from the Houthis. If the Houthis are allowed to be able to walk around unchecked south of Saudi Arabia, they develop a disruption force, not a dominance force, but they develop a disruption force in the Black Sea, or sorry, not the Black Sea, the Red Sea, and potentially have the ability to affect operations in the Suez Canal because of what they're launching, the missiles that they're launching. Now, the problem with that is, and I'll just take it a step further because this is like important to think about for a second. The problem with that is they become a bigger bug to have to deal with because of what they do. The existence of Hamas doing what they're doing because they're being supported by Iran to do that, okay, has everything to do with Iran understanding that they cannot unilaterally act against Israel because they're not completely or fully equipped or capable tactically to do so. They're deploying that in hopes that they're going to, as you called it, disrupt peace talks with other nations. What they don't realize, and this is the part that's really scary, what they don't realize is all they're going to do is strengthen the potential peace because they forgot one important variable. And that is, and by the way, they got a lot of variables right.
Oh, yeah.
They recognize that the United States of America does not have the resolve to step in the way it should, that this current administration is friendly towards the cause of Iran. We see that with the constant talks of the JCPOA. All of that stuff is understood to be correct. What they did not take into account was the resolve of the Jewish people. Here's one thing that they were doing, by the way, and I believe this was being done. This was, by the way, not only just being done by Iran. This was being done with help from the United States. The disruption that was going on with respect to the opposition of the judicial reform and the annexation of certain areas near the Golan Heights.
Okay.
Those areas were already problematic for many Jewish citizens. They had a problem with certain things that they were seeing, right? The problem is the United States had a hand in influencing this, and so did Iran. We began to bring in a certain level of, let me just say, I'm not going to say hidden, but discreet propagandist communication that began to polarize the Jewish population. You had people, you remember this, you had people in the Jewish population that were marching through the streets of Tel Aviv saying, if I get called to fight for Israel, I'm not going to do it, right? Yeah. There was a lot of division going on, and what they did not take into account when they started doing that, because these were outside influences that were creating all of this in Israel. Because there's the one thing that Jews are really good at doing. Let me tell you what they're really good at doing amongst their people. They're good at arguing. And if they're good at arguing, then they don't do things like protest and tear streets down and burn buildings down when they're upset about things. The Arabs do it all day.
Yeah.
Jews don't do that. You can sit down with 3 Jews and you can yell and scream and have World War II verbally, and they'll walk away loving each other on their way home.
My American family doesn't understand that about my Israeli family.
Of course they don't understand that.
I know my wife is laughing right now.
Because they don't know the ways of our people. They don't know the ways of our people. They don't get it. As a matter of fact, many Arab cultures won't even respect you if you're not willing to argue that way. So what happens is this. They failed to take that into account. The Persians failed to take it into account. The Americans failed to take that into account. And basically what happened was they were banking on the fact that Jews were so divided over this issue that when war erupted as a result of these nefarious actions, it would literally destroy Israel because they would be so divided that they could not come together and fight. And by the way, that's the reason why Mohammed bin Shalom of Saudi Arabia said, we're just waiting to see what happens with what's going on here, because even MBS was not sure of whether or not Israel was going to hold their ground.
Okay, so let's go back to where we are right now, and let's talk about what's happening now, because the Hezbollah is on the other side of that red line up there.
Yep.
They're looking down at us and they're saying, do we push this button or not? So what they're doing right now is not actually pushing the button. They haven't pulled out their rifle and started shooting at us. They're throwing darts at us. And every once in a while, dart, just to say we've done something, but not to pull out all.
They're saving face. That's right.
Not only that, and here's the reason. We're asking, okay? The world is asking, wait, Hezbollah said they would. That's what they're here for. They said they would. They do that. Why isn't the Hezbollah getting in? By the way, the Hamas, the Palestinians and Hamas, the guy in the bunker underneath Gaza is asking himself, where's the Hezbollah? Where is they?
Yep.
And here's something that I think we're in the middle of, and this is a very critical week because right now the people in Iran and Tehran are deciding, do I spend the Hezbollah in order to attack Israel? Because Israel is so upset right now that if they do pull out an attack, Lebanon will bear the brunt of it, and the Hezbollah will be destroyed. Hamas is going to be destroyed. The question Iran is asking, do I want Hezbollah to be destroyed also? Yeah. And what do I get out of that? And that is we're on this kind of seesaw minute. At one moment they say, yes, maybe we'll put the Hezbollah, and we might be sitting here a week from now where there's a massive battle going on the northern border. But we might be sitting here a week from now when Nasrallah and the Hezbollah hasn't gone in, which means Iran is trying to, keep this asset for a later time.
Yeah, so this is, and let me just say this. Iran will never act against Israel unilaterally unless it's being done through a proxy.
But what happens if it loses the Hezbollah?
Okay, so I'll tell you what happens if it loses Hezbollah, which may very well happen. If they lose Hezbollah, then I promise you, Iran will focus its efforts on its relationship with Russia, and will focus on its efforts with its relationship with China and all of the stands, Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. That's what they're going to do, and I'll tell you why. Okay, basically, this is where my knowledge of Bible prophecy comes into play. We know that this alliance takes place at Ezekiel 38, where the attack from the north happens via Syria. Okay, so look, I get that. Okay, but understand this. This is very, very important. People don't get this. I heard several people say, look, this is where I'll disagree with Tucker Carlson. I heard several people say, well, you dummies don't understand this, but Israel better do everything that it can to keep itself from attacking Hezbollah if something happens, and the United States better not get involved in anything at all. Okay? Let me just say this, because this is like critical. Like this is very, very important. Okay? All right. If Hezbollah attacks Israel, Israel will unleash hell on Hezbollah.
And on Lebanon.
So let me take that a step further. So Beirut right now, I promise you Beirut is begging Iran and begging Hezbollah to stay out of this.
Yes.
They cannot afford to lose the South. They can't.
No, not only the South. I mean, Israel, Israel has said we're gonna bomb them back into the Stone Age.
Yeah, but see, here's the part that people don't understand. If they lose the South, okay, and let me bring the map over here so that everybody understands this, okay? Because this is really critical. If Lebanon loses the southern border, you might think, what's the big deal? There's just a bunch of mountains over there, and so on and so forth, okay? What they don't get is if they lose the southern border, they lose the Mediterranean. Lebanon no longer has any say or control over anything that happens on the Mediterranean coast, because an overwhelming majority of any operations that take place in Lebanon right now that involve the Mediterranean for their own benefit, economic benefit, or promise involves some type of offshore drilling in one way or another.
Yep. Their economy is
totally right. Their economy is dead. And the moment that happens, I promise you Netanyahu will do exactly what I believe he probably should have done earlier. And he is going to revoke any promise that was made by Bennett with respect to the offshore assets that were unjustly and unrighteously given to Lebanon for the sake of trying to maintain peace with Hezbollah. When that is gone, Turkey is going to lose its mind because Erdogan was relying upon that asset that was possessed by Lebanon to be able to have the rights to manage those minerals.
To be a part of it, yeah.
To be a part of it and to be able to give themselves what they needed to so that they didn't have to deal with the existing land bridge issue that goes on. And here's the thing. Saudi Arabia wants more than anything to see that happen. Not the bad for Israel. They want to see Israel prevail because the more Israel fights Hamas and Hezbollah, the more confident Saudi Arabia is,
the more secure they are
as a Sunni nation, to say we can do whatever we want. By the way, I'll go as far as to say this: Azerbaijan, as much of a mess as they are, especially with the killing that's going on with the Armenians and so on and so forth, they cannot afford to take a position that is aggressive in any way to Israel because they are Israel's closest asset as a Shiite nation.
Can I tie two things into this?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's tie number one. Go down to the far south. When this started off, the Iranians pressed the button on the Houthis in Yemen and say, do what you can. And the Houthis declared war on Israel and didn't do anything. Well, here's the thing. They did, okay, but it turns out, and for the first time, the Houthis fired a couple of ballistic missiles and sent a couple of unmanned aircraft that did a terrible job on one of the oil fields in Saudi Arabia, but in the case of Israel, didn't even get through. Meaning, if what happened with the Houthis, based on Iranian technologies, is what they fired, didn't manage to get through Israel's defenses, okay? Two things we learned on our side, that the Arrow system, which is an anti-ballistic missile interceptor, actually works. And the only weapon that Iran has to confront Israel directly are ballistic missiles.
Yep.
So if we have an anti-ballistic missile system up, working, tested, and effective, then that means that's been taken off. And what happened with the Houthis in the south proved to them that they have no actual function to do anything from that kind of distance. So they're going to have to use proxies. They can't fight a long-range war, which brings us back to the thing that if they lose their proxy in northern Lebanon and southern Lebanon, then they don't have any more proxies to play with.
100%.
Two, one of the things that everybody was waiting to see what would happen with is the rest of the Arabs in the Middle East.
Yep.
There's a huge population, including the Queen of Jordan, who were Palestinian inside Jordan. What happened? Everybody wanted to see if that would happen. It didn't. Everybody wanted to see if the rest of the Muslim world would come up. I mean, there are more Europeans demonstrating against what's happened than there are Arab Muslims demonstrating against what's happened. And more critically than anything, and I think nobody's really paying attention, what's happening inside Israel, both in the West Bank and inside Israel proper, that has 20% Arab Muslim population, is quiet. Altogether. I mean, there's been a little bit of attacks, and again, there's a little bit of pressure, but on the whole, the Israeli Arabs and even the Palestinians in the West Bank have kept quiet in this. What I'm trying to say is this.
So true.
The whole world, besides the whole Arab world, is actually willing to sacrifice Hamas.
100% true.
Really right now.
And they don't want to sacrifice Hamas. Can I just add to this? They hope that Hamas doesn't prevail.
Oh no.
They don't want Hamas to prevail. Because here's the reason why. Let's just take Saudi Arabia, for example. They're my favorite example of this, right?
Sisi. Sisi would be a good example.
Yeah, that's another great one. That's another great one, right? Let's just talk about Egypt for a second, because they're the more immediate south. They hold the southern border of Gaza. Okay, look, there's two reasons why they will not allow Palestinian refugees to live in the country. The first reason is Hamas's charter. Hamas's charter, even though Hamas came from the Islamic Brotherhood, which in essence is the dominant political influence right now in Egypt, right?
Yeah, but Sisi overthrew a Muslim Brotherhood government. That's what he fought against.
Yeah, but understand this. He threw an Islamic Brotherhood government, understanding that what drove what happened in Shoat al-Tahrir, besides the United States of America, also was created by an undergirding of people still sympathetic towards the cause of the Islamic Brotherhood.
Which is a very interesting conversation that we need to have sometimes. Why are the Muslims throwing their pride and their identity on such a failing ideology? But
It's Islam.
Okay, that's another.
It's one of the most influential things. But by the way, this is very important to note. What you're seeing right now with the president of Egypt, when you look at this, is very similar to the dynamic that existed when Israel went to war with Egypt in 1973. Very similar circumstance.
I can imagine Sisi on his prayer rug in the mosque with his head to the ground, praying to Allah that Hamas will be destroyed.
Yep.
I mean, the thing that scares Sisi and scares the Egyptian leadership more than anything is the Hamas comes out of this standing. If that happens, the whole Middle East is in a different place. So we're going to take out Hamas for our reasons, because we will not allow this murderous, barbaric identity to stand on our borders. But the rest of the Middle East is waiting to see that Israel actually puts its money where its mouth is and makes sure that the kind of fundamentalist, crazy Islamic jihadist, ISIS-style mentality has to be taken down. And if it's not taken down, everybody is shaking in their boots.
But I think that Sadat was thinking the same way in the mid-'70s. I think even as bad as it sounds, even as ugly as the war was between Egypt and Israel back in that time, I believe in my heart, understanding the history and what drove that time, and understanding the sentiment of the culture as being described by my family, but by what my family told me, right?
Okay.
There was an undergirding of an extremist mindset that wanted to see the elimination of the Jewish state. Sadat was more motivated politically, and his greatest concern with the aggression that existed with Israel was more about Syria and Jordan, and not so much about the welfare of the Sinai or anything related to that, which is why he was the first to come to the table to declare peace or to create the peace, and it's eventually why he lost his life.
And who killed him?
Yeah, we know. I mean, we know
the Egyptian version of Hamas is what killed
basically Islamic Brotherhood. It's the underminings, it's the undertwinings of Islam. What is the Islamic Brotherhood?
But here's the thing.
They killed him.
But here's the thing, and here's the weird thing. If you'd have told anybody 50 years ago that Iran would be supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, I mean, Iran's Shiites hate the Muslim Brotherhood, or hated the Muslim Brotherhood much more than Israel ever did.
Yeah, but I have to remind everybody of this. This is the part that everybody doesn't. This is the part that they don't understand, and this is especially dominant in the Shiite mind. I'll read the passage again. It's important. I should do it. I'll do it again and again and again and again. Wa makaru wa makara Allahu wa Allahu khayru al makarina. Think about that. They lied, right? Referring to the Jews. Yep. They were deceptive. So Allah is deceptive. Why? Because Allah is the chief of deceivers. So the Shiites especially view lying and deception as being honorable.
No, it's an asset to use.
It is. It's honorable. So when you see Raisi in front of the UN talking about the honor of living for family lives and so on, do you understand how brilliant Raisi actually is in deploying terminology that the leftists love?
Oh, yeah.
He knows how to manipulate that group. Raisi got up there and he said that what is going on right now by Israel is cultural apartheid. He used those exact words. And one of the things that he quotes, he shows his ugly face. One of the things he quotes is, it's cultural apartheid when little girls are not allowed to wear their hijab in school.
Okay, but here's the thing. He knows that Arabs all over the world could not care about what happened.
Yep.
The only reason the Hamas believes that they could pull off an attack like this and somehow live to tell the tale, because they don't have to win this war. All they have to do is survive. And the only reason they believe that they can survive, not because their Arab brothers are going to stand up for them and help them, because look at what happened. Hezbollah is not standing up. Arab Israelis are not standing up. The rest of the world, Arab world is not standing up. The only reason they thought that they could pull this off is because they knew that they had Western leftist support.
Yep.
And the only thing that's going to stop
right.
Israel right now from finishing off the Hamas is if the pressure on the Western governments from their leftist Arab supporters inside their countries, meaning the demonstrations in New York, in Texas, and in Los Angeles, are putting more pressure on the United States to tell Israel to stop the fighting than all of the Arabs in the whole Arab world together.
I'm going to stick my neck out. I'm going to make this statement, and I'm going to stand by it. Okay. And I can apologize to people later if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. I actually think I'm going to be right about this statement. The United States will never be successful in convincing Israel to stop. I can promise you that. Well, as a matter of fact, I can promise you this. I can make you this promise, and I think you'll agree with me, understanding the culture and the mindset of your people, right? Israel will not rest until Hamas is completely destroyed. And let me take it a step further. Israel will not rest until they take control of Gaza again, because they have to. And I can also take it a step further. Okay, I can take it a step further.
Now we're going into the deep areas.
We're going into some deep areas. That's right. I'm going to take it a step further. Israel, especially men like Netanyahu, recognize they will never be able to complete the normalization agreement unless they do exactly that. They have to.
But here we go again. I mean, what I'm trying to point out is the fact that the people in the West are Hamas's main shield. The people in the West that are supporting Hamas, yelling "Free Palestine," yelling "From the river to the sea," pulling down American flags in the streets of New York.
They're going to be embarrassed.
Well, they're the ones right now who are doing more to hold up Hamas and to support Hamas than anybody else. And what I'm trying to say is, if you've got the whole Arab world who is silent because they want Hamas wiped out, the Western world is not silent. And that's the question I'm saying. There is a spiritual war that is silencing, okay, one side, and is silencing the good people in the West. The people who are listening to us are in many cases not as outspoken and as noisy as the ones on the other side.
Yeah, but there's an element here that we have to discuss because it's important. We know the end game. And we know that the Bible tells us that prior to the attack in Ezekiel 38, the Middle Eastern world will have a peace established in it.
Okay.
Israel specifically. You know, unwalled cities, unfenced. Listen, now I've heard some very famous and well-known Bible teachers. They're not Bible teachers. They're commentators who claim to be prophecy teachers. Even some guys that are Jewish, that are actually saying right now we're in that place of unwalled cities and unfenced cities. That's impossible. The way they're justifying that is because everything is electronic, and that's why it's unwalled and unfenced. Baloney. If the fence is electronic or the fence is physical, it's still a fence. Here's what I'm learning. I've learned this over the last 6 years more vividly than any other time in my life. The greatest success that the former president had in the Middle East was attributed to one variable, one critical variable. He understood the vitriol that the Sunni nations have towards Iran.
Yeah. And he
understood it.
And he played it.
The ignorant and foolish people that continue to march for Palestine in the United States do not recognize that the very Arabs that they're claiming to stand for are the ones that are begging Allah to see these people removed. Everybody knows that. Look, let's stop playing these games. The battle that we're fighting right now is an important one to fight, the media battle, not because we have to fight for the existence of Israel. Can I just say that? I want to be very careful how I say that. I'm not trying to be arrogant. We're not fighting this battle so that Israel prevails because we want to make sure Israel prevails. Here's the way I look at it. Israel's prevailing.
It will prevail.
Whether or not anybody wants to contribute to them prevailing, they're going to win. I promise you they're going to win because God says they're going to win. I'm fighting for the people that are going to suffer because they chose not to stand with Israel and be on the right side of history. That's my motivation.
Well, they're going to suffer in Gaza.
Well, listen, look, I promise you.
But I think they're going to suffer here in the United States too.
It's badly. We have a group of people that did to the Jews in Gaza that are here in this country ready to do it to Americans. But I do really want to take this a step further because I believe that eventually. Well, let me back up. Let me just give you one illustration. Early on, when this Black Lives Matter nonsense became really prominent and it was getting really big, I had tons of people beat me up and tell me, you're evil, you're racist, you're a bigot, you're this, you're that, you're here, you're there. I had a Jewish woman, business owner, very successful business owner, tell me, how dare you? We're Black Lives Matter protesters. We're this. I said, you're a Jewish woman. You're a successful Jew. You're actually a brilliant lady. You have a whole group of people that are Black Lives Matter protesters. You know what you're doing? You know what you're doing in your own business? You are creating a group of people who will eventually turn on you and your people.
Yeah.
Okay? So
I think she knows that now.
Oh, yeah. Now, by the way, I spoke against this. I spoke against the Black Lives Matter movement. I said they are Marxists. By the way, people don't know this about Islam. You know what the Marxists have in common with Islam? They have the same goal. The same purpose, to do the same things to cultures and societies. No one wants to admit that, but that's what drives it. So when I started talking about Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, people said I was crazy, I was banned, I was kicked off of things. Now people are beginning to look and say, James, you're right. They were defrauding black families. They were hurting black people. The same thing is going on here. Eventually, when Israel fully takes back what belongs to them, and they begin to build out Gaza again, the way that they should, I promise you the Palestinians will love Israel. It doesn't sound like it. Well, let me back up. Let me just say this, right? The non-Islamic fundamentalist Palestinians will praise Israel.
Oh, they are. They are already.
That's the way it is. And by the way, so will Saudi Arabia. So will the UAE. So will Sudan.
So here's the thing. Even a lot of the Palestinians in Gaza are going to thank Israel for this.
Already doing it.
Okay, but again, the problem is not there. Again, we're going to take out Gaza. We're going to take out the Hamas. We will make sure that that kind of enemy will not be on the other side of our border. It looks like we're going to have to take out the Hezbollah to make sure that that's not going to enemy, but we'll talk about that when that happens. But by the way, in order to tie in what we said before, okay, when the Hezbollah does push a button, if they do, and start an all-out war with Israel, Israel's going to release all the stops.
Israel's going to destroy them.
But here's the thing. I need the people who are looking at this now, who are seeing that Israel is not attacking Hezbollah, even though I need you to remember this, because what they're going to say is, look at Israelis' aggression. Look at the non-proportionate reaction. Look at the genocide that Israel is perpetrating against the Lebanese people. Israel doesn't want, doesn't need, and is trying not to. But you can't sit down and let people fire rockets across your border. You can't let them fire from the hill up there to the bottom of the valley. You can't let that happen. But here's the thing. All of the people are going to forget that Israel didn't start this, and we're going to be blamed. And all of that leads us to what we keep on talking about. Here it's going to come. This is when it's going to come, and we're going to have to deal with this soon.
You're not wrong.
Remember what I'm saying a week from now.
You're not wrong.
If it happens.
Yeah, but that will indeed be the case, and you're not wrong about that. You're not, and they're going to, and I don't think Netanyahu's joking when he says confidently on behalf of his government that we will do everything in our power to literally destroy Hezbollah, and it will be ugly. By the way, can we bring up Turkey for just a second?
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Turkey.
We're still in a good year, Bloom.
Let's talk about Turkey for a second, because this will help to prove my point, because this is something that we haven't talked about, at least not recently. Erdogan hates Bibi.
Oh,
hates him. There's no love lost there. They both hate each other. Okay. Iran has been putting a lot of pressure on Turkey. A lot of pressure on Turkey.
To get into this.
To not just get into this, but in essence, to do whatever they can within the confines of power that they have, especially with respect to NATO, to interfere with things that are going on with Israel, to the point where you have a Turkish official who is a prominent military force basically saying, I'm going to do everything in my power to help the cause of Hamas. And let me take it a step further. Erdogan at a rally talked about how quickly they could invade if they needed to.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the funny thing. When push comes to shove, when they were given pressure to stop any oil exports or imports that they had going on with Israel, you know what Erdogan did? Erdogan said, I'm not going to listen to that pressure. Erdogan said, I have to maintain my relationship with Israel. And not only did he do that, he made it clear that he would never talk to Bibi again. But guess what? Herzog is going to be talking to him soon.
Again, I mean, what I'm trying to kind of zoom into here is that if you are a Hamas major sitting in a bunker right now, somewhere in northern Gaza, and you know that the noose is closing in, if you're there, you're asking yourself, where are the Arabs in the West Bank? My family, why are they not rising up? Where is the Egyptian, Saudi, Jordanian elements? Why are they not rising up? Where is the Hezbollah? Why are they not rising up? Where is Erdogan, who said that he was going to do this and this? Why are they not rising up? And I can only feel sorry for this deep-pitted, it's over, that he feels right now.
Yeah, and the advice that I would give that person is you better do two things. You better give your life to Christ and you better surrender. Because here's the thing, you're going to die. And when you die, you're going to hell.
So like in other wars, the faster the Hamas surrenders, the less Palestinians will die.
That's very true. But they don't want less Palestinians to die. They want more Palestinians to die.
Okay.
We know that. You should hear the recording that the IDF just released of one of their official Arabic translators coordinating with one of the administrators of the hospital to help the evacuation and minimize the amount of damage. People don't know this. Do you know that the day before yesterday, you know this, I'm sure you know this, the day before yesterday, we sent a whole contingent of special forces to join standard IDF ground officials, right? Ground forces. To protect people that are leaving
the hospital.
The hospital. Yeah. Like, come on.
Wait, but here's
what the heck?
Here's something else. In Ashkelon.
Who are they being protected from?
In Ashkelon, on the other side of the border, there's a hospital called the Barzilai Hospital. Do you know how many times the Barzilai Hospital has been hit by Hamas rockets?
Habibi, I can't imagine.
7 or 8 times already.
Yeah.
Where is the world on that?
Yeah. Yep.
So we have a selective truth. I think I talked about this on Sunday, a selective truth, and that says a lot about the people who are trying to spread the truth. If I cherry pick this truth, the Hamas and not that truth, and I think that's another indication. Yeah, that was another rocket.
Yeah, I'm watching it too. I'm telling you guys, it's absolutely crazy. I'm bothered by it. I think the conversation we've had has been a good one. But I think that we need to wake up. I think there's a reality that needs to be understood here about what's happening here. Not even the Arab countries want Hamas to prevail.
So I think what we need to talk about a little bit more, James, is a call to action.
Yeah.
What are we as American Christians? What are we as people who want to support Israel? What is the action that we should take? And I'm stressing this again and again because there's 2 reasons I'm stressing this. One reason is, yes, I'm looking out for my people. I'm looking out for my country. There's a political issue. We talked to a political analyst in Israel a little while ago, and one of the things that he stresses is that the Biden administration is how to say, distorting the very unique ties between the American administration and Iran. And that's a whole different dynamic. And there's a whole dynamic in that. But I want to stress something else that I think is really, really critical. And you've been on tour with me and you've heard me say this. One of the reasons that Christian, Bible-loving people need to stand up and publicly show support for Israel is to tell the Israelis, to tell God's chosen people, and you've heard me use this phrase again and again, that there are different kinds of Christians, and some of the Christians actually love us.
Yep.
And I think as much as all of the rest of the reasons, Christianity has a role to portray to the Jewish people, to the Israelis, that you're not alone. Because if you're an Israeli sitting in your living room, watching what's going on in Washington, watching what's going on in Texas, watching what's going on in Rome, Milan, and whatever, you're thinking everybody hates us, everybody's against us.
It's true.
We need those who don't and those who support us to be as vocal and as loud as the ones who hate us. And I think that's something that I wanted to convey here today.
And I think it's important. We're going to do something later on this afternoon. We're going to take a brief trip. It's not going to be a long one. We're going to take a brief trip to the big Jewish center that's here in Signal Hill. And we're going to go meet. They don't know this is happening. We're going to go meet with some of the officials there.
Okay.
And we're going to basically tell them that we're a local Christian church, and that we love them, and that we stand with them, and that whatever they need, we're here. And I think that we have an obligation to do that. I think that if we don't do that, we're going to put ourselves continually in the position where we allow, and this is going to be harsh when I say this, okay? Like I just want people to understand this, right? We're going to allow ourselves to become complicit.
Okay. I got you.
We're going to allow ourselves to become complicit. And you know what's funny? I won't ever allow that to happen. I just won't. I refuse to allow that to happen. I refuse to allow that to happen. And it's driving me crazy. I'm ignoring that. I'm not taking that call. So I think it's an important conversation to be had. I think it's an important conversation.
Let's continue this. So what now, James?
We need to tell the truth. Guys, I'm telling you, look, there's a difference between knowing the truth and then when it comes up in a conversation, you basically telling somebody, okay?
Okay.
Look, you cannot it is not right to just simply know something, right? And then all of a sudden be able to, for lack of a better term, bring it up when it's convenient. You're complicit if that happens.
Okay. Got it.
You have to be active in telling people about this.
All right. So let's be active. What do we do?
You need to go out of your way to be intentional about passing this message on.
Making a difference.
If that means you target 5 people a day to say, hey, do you know that this is really going on?
Do you know what is really going on?
Are you aware of the situation? Are you aware of what's happening?
I think also to guard your mind from letting the deceiver plant the regular deceptions that we're getting in there.
Yep.
And this Israel is perpetrating a genocide. I mean, which is totally untrue.
It's a lie.
But people are buying into it. Israel is killing babies. I mean, okay. That dynamic, you need to understand that there's more going on. And not all the truths that come down through your video feed, for your YouTube feed, or through your Instagram, not all is true. You have to be careful, just like in other parts of your life, what you accept and what you buy into and what you don't. And again, I know I'm speaking to the choir, but we have to get out of the confines of our little realm and start spreading this word to the other ones.
Yeah. I agree. And if we don't, I'm just going to say this, and I don't, again, people are going to be bothered by this, right? But you're complicit. And I know that that's not a fun thing to say, but you are. You are.
James, are we talking to the people who are not? I mean, these are the people. The ones that we're talking to right now are the ones who are understanding. Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Yeah, but look, you have to understand this, right? Look, let me... Here's the best way to demonstrate it, okay? Let me just demonstrate it to you, okay? Let's say me and you are walking down the street, okay? And you see a guy who says, you see that child over there? I'm going to kill that child.
Okay.
He's dead. And I'm going to do it in an hour. And he's legitimate. He's serious. He said he's going to do it. It's like, wow, that's a harsh thing to say. That's terrible, right? And you are physically incapable of restraining him. You can't do it. Just say you have no arms or something like that. You can't do it, okay? If you said, I know that's the case, and then you don't do anything about it, you just contributed to what happened to that kid. Especially when you could have picked up the phone and called a police officer and said, hey, this guy told me this, and this guy's not leaving my sight until I see one of you over here, because I'm looking at a kid that's in danger, and this man threatened this child. Okay?
So we need
my point is
pick
this.
Up the phone.
Yeah, my point is this. If you know about it, great. But if you don't do anything with that knowledge, whether or not you want to be, you're complicit. Whether or not that's a harsh statement to make.
I got you.
Right? So what do? You contribute to the propagation of truth. You might not be able to be the guy that pushes the button and puts it all to a stop. But you will be able to be the person that will add to making it difficult to continue on.
Okay, so I'm going to add something that I've been doing lately. I've got a Instagram kind of movement going on, the Balagan Connection on the Instagram, of short 1.5 minute videos.
We'll start seeing those, by the way, pop up.
Talk about these issues. Okay, genocide, 1.5 minutes. Here's what they're saying. Here's what the truth is. Here's what you need to say. I think these are short videos that actually give people ammunition, for lack of a better word, or ways to engage with the deception that is being spread. I think other people are doing this. I'm probably going to put on some of my website a little bit more, but start spreading the word. Start pushing this out.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. And I am going to very quickly. We are, by the way, we are going to be on Locals for just a few minutes. I am going to show you some videos that I cannot show you on YouTube. And by the way, this isn't because we're violating YouTube's policies by showing you these videos. We can't show you these videos because of specific rules that keep us from doing so with respect to the material we're showing you, right? So we do have permission to be able to do it on another platform, and I'm going to show it to you. Especially as it relates to something that the media isn't going to show you. And it's what's happening with Hezbollah and the leaders. And I'm going to show you this video that's going to make you sick. We're only going to be on Locals for a few minutes, maybe 5, but I want you guys to see it because it's important. I also want to say this, Dawn, thank you for your generosity on Rumble. What an absolutely amazing contribution. And I also want to thank a few more people on the super chats and super stickers. Annie Lynn Lee, thank you so much. You say, God bless you and keep fighting the good fight. Chu Pam, thank you. Chava 2K, thank you. You say, Israel is the one nation on earth that bends over backwards to minimize civilian casualties. Yep. I don't know how they keep it up with all they're accused of. Amen. And you're right about that. And Lisa Dunn, thank you. You guys are amazing. Thank you for your support. You are, you're just all wonderful people. Yeah. And I want to thank you. And Peter Wilson, we just saw that. So we're going to close in prayer. David, any final words?
Yes, 2 friends. You see I'm wearing a Balagan Connection t-shirt.
Support David, please.
We've got t-shirts up, and, send me a connection. either on the Instagram or the YouTube, and I've got people that are now going through this, and I got a load of T-shirts, and let's see if we can do that and kind of spread the word. I love the concept, and yes, reach out. The official media is not going to do what we need to do. This is something that's going to happen on a personal level. You talk to your family, your cousins, your daughter, and if you need us to give you talking points, connecting points, things that make sense to somebody, please let us know, because this is a war that is being fought for much more than just Israel, and I think that's what we need to pray about too.
Yep. Amen. Amen. All right, guys, let's close in prayer, and we're going to zip over to locals in just a few minutes, okay? Father in heaven, we thank you for this time, Lord. What a rich conversation. Thank you, Lord, for that. Thank you for the open doors that you continue to give us to propagate truth. We love you, God, and we thank you. Go before us now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We love you guys, and we'll see you on locals in a few minutes. God bless you.